Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The humidity clung to Nora Valent's skin like a second layer as she hacked through the dense undergrowth of the Niam Forbidden Zone. 6 weeks into her botanical expedition, and she still hadn't acclimated to the oppressive jungle climate. Her research grant had barely covered the permits to enter this restricted area, but the rumors of undiscovered plant species with remarkable medicinal properties made the struggle worthwhile. "Damn it," she muttered, swatting at a mosquito the size of a quarter. Her voice echoed through the mist-laden forest, disturbing a flock of iridescent birds that took flight with indignant squawks. Nora paused to check her location on her GPS unit. The signal was weak, but it confirmed she was approaching the coordinates where satellite imagery had detected unusual vegetation patterns. Setting her machete down, she took a long drink from her canteen and wiped sweat from her brow, leaving a smudge of dirt across her forehead. "Just another kilometer," she encouraged herself, checking her sample kit was secure. The University of Botanical Sciences would extend her funding for another year if she could bring back conclusive evidence of the rumored night-blooming heliconia variant said to contain compounds that could revolutionize treatments for neurological disorders. As Nora gathered her gear, she felt a prickling sensation at the back of her neck. The jungle had gone eerily silent. No insects chirping, no birds calling, not even the distant howls of monkeys that had been her constant companions for weeks. She slowly turned, scanning the dense foliage surrounding her. That's when she saw it, a flash of something that wasn't quite right. A pattern of movement that didn't match the natural sway of vegetation in the breeze. Holding her breath, Nora squinted through the mist, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "Hello," she called out tentatively, instantly regretting breaking the silence. "Is someone there?" For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the mist seemed to part, revealing a figure that made Nora's scientific mind struggle to comprehend what her eyes were witnessing. It was humanoid but definitely not human. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with limbs slightly longer than proportional for its height, the being had skin that seemed to shift between a deep azure blue and a mottled green pattern that matched the surrounding foliage. Its eyes, three of them, were large and almond-shaped, with vertical pupils that dilated visibly as they studied her. No nose was visible, just small gill-like slits that fluttered rhythmically on either side of its face. Nora's first instinct was to run, but her legs refused to move. Her second instinct, the scientist in her, was to observe and document. Her trembling hand reached for the camera hung around her neck. The creature made a soft trilling sound and tilted its head, mimicking her movement. It didn't appear aggressive. If anything, it seemed as curious about her as she was about it. "I'm Nora," she said softly, pointing to herself. "Nora." She knew it couldn't understand her, but something compelled her to communicate. The being blinked its three eyes in sequence and then pointed to its chest. "Zzz-ra-ra-kkk," it vocalized, the sound somewhere between speech and song. "Zarak," Nora repeated, her scientific mind already racing. An intelligent species unknown to science, capable of mimicry and possibly language. This discovery would eclipse any rare plant she might find. The being, Zarak, nodded slowly, a surprisingly human gesture. It then extended a six-fingered hand, each digit ending in what appeared to be bioluminescent pads that glowed a soft blue. Nora hesitated only briefly before extending her own hand. When their fingers touched, a mild electric tingle ran up her arm, and Zarak's skin color shifted to include patterns of bioluminescent purple that pulsed in what seemed like rhythm with her heartbeat. "Fascinating," she whispered. Over the next few hours, through gestures and drawings in the soil, Nora learned that Zarak was not alone. There was a settlement, a nest home, as she interpreted from his mime of sleeping and multiple beings, somewhere deeper in the Forbidden Zone. Zarak was what she gathered to be a scout or perhaps a hunter, given the primitive but effective tools attached to a belt around his waist. As the afternoon light began to fade, Nora realized she needed to return to her base camp. Her research partner, Dominic, would be worried if she didn't check in by nightfall. With reluctance, she indicated to Zarak that she had to leave but would return to this spot tomorrow. The aliens seemed to understand, nodding again in that oddly human way. But as she gathered her samples and equipment, Zarak touched her arm lightly and then pointed to her GPS unit, making a negative motion with his other hand. "You don't want me to tell others about you," Nora interpreted aloud. "You want this to be a secret." Zarek's three eyes blinked in unison this time, and he made a low humming sound that she somehow knew meant affirmation. "I understand," she said, nodding solemnly. I won't tell anyone yet. As she made her way back through the jungle, Nora's mind was racing with questions. How had an entire humanoid species remained undiscovered in a world mapped by satellites and drones? Why were they hiding? And why did Zarek's touch leave her feeling a lingering connection that defied scientific explanation? Back at base camp, Dominic was preparing their evening meal over a portable stove. With his perpetually disheveled dark hair and round glasses that kept sliding down his nose, he looked every bit the academic botanist he was. "You're later than usual," he remarked without looking up from the bubbling pot of reconstituted stew. "Find anything interesting?" Nora hesitated, Zarek's request for secrecy fresh in her mind. "Just the usual," she lied, setting down her pack. "Promising fungal samples, a few insects I haven't catalogued before, nothing extraordinary." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "For nothing extraordinary, you certainly look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," she replied, busying herself with organizing her specimen containers. "And I think I might be coming down with something. The humidity is brutal today." "Well, don't get sick on me now," Dominic said, handing her a bowl of stew. "We've only got 2 more weeks before our permit expires, and we've barely covered half the area we planned." Nora nodded absently, her thoughts already drifting back to Zarek and their strange encounter. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. For the next several days, Nora made excuses to separate from Dominic during their research excursions, always finding her way back to the clearing where she'd first met Zarek. The alien was consistently waiting for her, and each day they made progress in developing a rudimentary form of communication. By the 5th day, Nora could understand basic concepts through Zarek's combination of vocalizations, gestures, and the strange empathic connection that seemed to strengthen whenever they made physical contact. She learned that his species called themselves the Vexili, and they had been on Earth for generations, hidden from human detection through their natural abilities to blend with their environment and disrupt electronic surveillance. On the 7th day, Zarek surprised her by bringing what appeared to be a small electronic device. When activated, it projected a three-dimensional holographic display of symbols that shifted and changed as he manipulated them with his bioluminescent fingertips. "Is this a translator?" Nora asked in amazement. Zarek nodded and adjusted several symbols. A mechanical voice emanated from the device. "Learning your language patterns, complex but decipherable." "You've been analyzing how I speak," Nora realized. "That's incredible technology." The translator processed her words and Zarek responded after listening to its translation. The device then converted his trilling speech. "We observe, long time, human languages, many dialects, this one, English, common in, scientific community." "How long have you been watching us?" Nora asked, a chill running down her spine despite the jungle heat. "Many cycles your kind, destructive, dangerous, but some like you different, curious, not afraid." Nora wasn't sure whether to be flattered or concerned. "Why are you revealing yourselves to me now?" Zarek's skin rippled with patterns of deep purple and blue. The translator was silent for a moment before converting. "Season of choosing approaches I felt connection. When first we touched, compatibility possible." "Compatibility," Nora repeated, confused. "What does that mean?" Zarek's 3 eyes focused intensely on her face. "Mating season, selection process, based on biochemical harmony, not physical attributes. Your species chooses mates through visual attraction, primitive method, often unsuccessful." Nora's scientific mind was fascinated, but alarm bells were also ringing. "Wait, are you saying you think we're compatible as mates?" "Possibility requires testing. Would you allow collection, small sample, your genetic material?" Before Nora could respond, the sound of breaking branches in the distance startled them both. Zarek's skin immediately shifted to match the surrounding vegetation, nearly disappearing from view. "What?" "Nora, where the hell are you?" Dominic's voice called out, much closer than she expected. "I have to go," she whispered urgently to Zarek. "Tomorrow, same time." Zarek nodded once before seemingly melting into the jungle. The translator device, however, remained in her hands. Whether by accident or design, she wasn't sure. Nora quickly shoved the alien technology into her specimen bag, just as Dominic pushed through the underbrush into the clearing. "There you are," he said, clearly annoyed. "You've been disappearing for hours every day. What's going on? Have you found something you're not sharing?" Looking into her research partner's suspicious face, Nora realized she was standing at a crossroads. What had begun as a simple botanical expedition had evolved into first contact with an alien species, one that apparently saw her as a potential mate. And now, with Zarek's translator in her possession, she had tangible proof of their existence. The implications were staggering and the choices ahead unclear. But one thing was certain, her life would never be the same after what she had discovered in the forbidden jungle. Nora stared at the alien translator device in her tent, its strange metallic surface catching the beam of her headlamp. She told Dominic she needed to organize her specimens, but in reality she was examining Zarek's technology with trembling hands. The encounter in the jungle had left her both scientifically exhilarated and personally confused. Compatibility testing, she murmured, recalling Zarek's words. What exactly did that entail, and more importantly, why was she not completely repulsed by the idea? A shadow fell across her tent entrance. Nora, you've been in there for hours, Dominic called. I've made dinner. Be right there, she replied, hastily wrapping the translator in a spare shirt and tucking it into her equipment case. When she emerged, Dominic was sitting by the campfire, his expression tense. He handed her a bowl of rehydrated curry without meeting her eyes. Thanks, she said, taking a seat on the log opposite him. The silence between them stretched uncomfortably. Are you going to tell me what's really going on? He finally asked, setting his bowl aside. We've worked together for 3 years, Nora. I know when you're hiding something. Nora took a bite of curry to buy herself time, but the food tasted like ash in her mouth. Zarek had asked for her discretion, and she understood why. If the world learned about the Vexili, they would become specimens to be studied or worse. I'm just focused on the research, she lied. You know how I get when I'm onto something promising. Dominic's eyes narrowed. We're supposed to be partners sharing discoveries. But the last week you've been collecting samples alone, disappearing for hours, and being evasive when I ask questions. I need some space to think through my hypotheses before sharing. You know my process, she countered, guilt gnawing at her insides. This isn't like you, he insisted. And you came back with mud on your knees today, but your specimen containers were nearly empty. You're meeting someone out there, aren't you? The accusation was technically true, but so far from what Dominic was imagining that Nora almost laughed. It's complicated, she admitted. So uncomplicated, he challenged. Is it one of the local guides, or someone from that mining company that's been sniffing around the perimeter of the reserve? No, nothing like that, Nora sighed. Look, I need you to trust me. There's something I'm investigating that's sensitive. I can't talk about it yet. Dominic's face hardened. Fine, keep your secrets. But remember, our grant requires detailed daily logs of our activities. The university expects collaborative research, not solo expeditions. He stood abruptly and retreated to his tent, leaving Nora alone with her cooling curry and complicated thoughts. The next morning, the tension remained. They worked silently at opposite ends of the camp, preparing for the day's excursion. When Dominic announced he was heading east to the riverbank to collect aquatic samples, Nora felt relief wash over her. She could meet Zarek without having to make excuses. I'll head west then to follow up on those fungal samples, she said casually. Dominic merely nodded and shouldered his pack. Once he was out of sight, Nora retrieved the translator device and headed toward her meeting place with Zarek. The jungle seemed different today, less intimidating, almost welcoming. She found herself noticing details she'd overlooked before, the specific patterns of light filtering through the canopy, the harmonious chorus of insect sounds, the subtle sweet scent of orchids hidden among the dense foliage. Zarek was waiting in the clearing, this time accompanied by another Vexili. The new alien was slightly shorter, with skin that shimmered more gold than blue, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern rather than Zarek's 3. You brought the translator, Zarek's mechanical voice said after she activated the device. This is good. Meet Thalara, healer and geneticist of our settlement. Nora nodded respectfully to the second alien. I'm honored to meet you, Thalara. The 4-eyed alien stepped forward, examining Nora with unnerving intensity. The translator processed Thalara's more melodic trills. Interesting specimen, compatible markers present, biochemical signature promising. May I? Thalara extended a hand with what appeared to be a small, organic-looking device attached to the palm. Nora hesitated. What will this do? Surface analysis only, Zarek assured her. Non-invasive, genetic scan like your fingerprinting, but more comprehensive. Will it hurt? Nora asked, scientific curiosity battling with self-preservation instinct. Slight tingling, no pain, no lasting effects, Thalara responded. Taking a deep breath, Nora extended her arm. Thalara pressed the device to her skin. A warm sensation spread from the point of contact, accompanied by a faint blue glow. After several seconds, the device emitted a series of musical tones. Fascinating, Thalara trilled, the translator struggling to convey the excitement in the alien's voice. Compatibility rating higher than anticipated, rare finding, especially for non-Vexili. Zarek's skin rippled with bright patterns of purple and gold, which Nora had come to recognize as expressions of pleasure or excitement. What does this mean exactly? Nora asked, rubbing her arm where the device had touched her. Zarek and Thalara exchanged looks before Zarek responded. Among Vexili, mates chosen through biochemical harmony, physical appearance secondary consideration. Emotional connection begins with chemical compatibility, grows stronger through bioluminescent synchronization. Like a biological dating app, Nora murmured. But how can I be compatible? I'm not even the same species. Rare phenomenon has occurred before, Thalara explained. Some genetic structures harmonize across species boundaries. Universal biochemical language transcends evolution. Implications were staggering. Nora's scientific mind was already formulating hypotheses about convergent evolution and universal biological constants, but another part of her was processing the more personal implications. So what happens now? She asked. If agreeable to you, Zarek said, his skin now pulsing in a rhythm that somehow matched her heartbeat. Beginning of courtship ritual. First phase, mental synchronization. How does that work? Instead of answering verbally, Zarek extended both hands, palms up, the bioluminescent pads glowing intensely. Thalara stepped back, assuming what appeared to be an observational role. Touch facilitates connection, allows sharing of thought patterns, not complete telepathy. More, emotional resonance. First step in determining true compatibility. Nora hesitated only briefly before placing her palms against Zarek's. Immediately, a warm current seemed to flow between them. Colors more vivid than anything in nature's palette exploded behind her eyelids. She gasped as foreign emotions, curiosity, wonder, attraction, and something untranslatable but profoundly moving flooded her consciousness. When she opened her eyes, Zarek's skin was pulsating with patterns that matched the rhythm of her breathing. Somehow she understood that he was experiencing her emotions as well, her scientific excitement, her ethical dilemmas, her growing fascination with him and his kind. That was, Nora struggled to find words. Connection established, Thalara announced. Preliminary bond forming, unusual strength for first contact, promising indicator. The experience left Nora lightheaded but exhilarated. This is how your species falls in love, through this biochemical connection. Love human concept, similar but not identical, Zarek explained. We call it Vexilia soul resonance. Bond deeper than emotional attachment, cellular recognition, two beings vibrating at complementary frequencies. And you think we have this, Vexilia? Nora asked. Beginning stage would strengthen with continued interaction, if both willing. Nora found herself nodding before she had consciously decided. I'm willing to explore this further. Scientifically speaking, it's unprecedented. Not merely science for me, Zarek admitted, his translator conveying a new depth of emotion. Feel draw to you, since first meeting, unusual for my kind, typically requires multiple synchronizations before attraction develops. Thalara made a sound that the translator didn't process, but somehow Nora understood was the equivalent of clearing one's throat. Next stage involves genetic exchange, small samples only, to test reproductive compatibility. Reproductive, Nora repeated, suddenly alarmed. I'm not sure I'm ready to discuss that aspect yet. Theoretical only at this stage, Thalara assured her. Academic interest, essential part of Vexilia assessment. Zarek's skin shifted to cooler tones. No pressure intended, human customs different will respect boundaries. Nora appreciated his sensitivity but found herself surprisingly open to the idea. I need time to process all this. It's a lot to take in. Understandable. When ready, return here. We'll continue exploration of compatibility. The sound of distant voices suddenly caught Nora's attention, human voices. Someone's coming, she warned, gathering her things quickly. Zarek touched her arm once more. sending a final pulse of reassurance through her before both aliens seemed to melt into the jungle, their skin perfectly mimicking the surrounding foliage. Moments later, a group of men in corporate logo jumpsuits pushed through the underbrush, led by a hard-faced woman with a surveyor's equipment. "Oh," the woman said, startled to find Nora there. "I didn't realize anyone else had permits for this sector." "I'm Dr. Nora Valent, University of Botanical Sciences," Nora said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're conducting a flora survey under government authorization." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Veronica Reese, Quantum Resource Development, we're doing preliminary geological surveys for mineral deposits." She gestured to her equipment. "All perfectly legal, I assure you." Nora nodded stiffly, acutely aware that Zarak and Thalora might still be within earshot, hidden by their camouflage. "This area is ecologically sensitive. I hope your surveys are non-invasive." "Of course," Veronica replied smoothly. "Though between you and me, this whole Forbidden Zone designation is likely to be revised soon. Our company has some very compelling proposals before the government regarding responsible resource extraction." The implication was clear. This protected jungle was being eyed for mining operations. Nora felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ambient temperature. "Well, I won't keep you from your work," she said, eager to get away from these intruders. "Actually," Veronica said, consulting a handheld device, "our readings are showing some unusual electromagnetic anomalies in this immediate area. Have you noticed anything strange during your research?" Nora's heart pounded. Were they somehow detecting the Vexili technology? "Nothing out of the ordinary," she lied. "Just typical jungle phenomena, bioluminescent fungi, electrical storms, that sort of thing." Veronica studied her face for a moment too long. "Right. Well, if you do notice anything unusual, Quantum Resources offers generous consultation fees for information that aids our surveys." "I'll keep that in mind," Nora replied, already backing away. "Good days." She hurried back toward camp, mind racing. Not only was she now involved in what might be first contact between humans and an alien species with whom she shared a mysterious biochemical compatibility, but there was also a corporation sniffing around the Vexili habitat with instruments that might detect their presence. When she reached camp, Dominic was already back, organizing his samples with meticulous care. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he remarked, echoing his comment from days earlier. "Everything okay?" Nora made a split-second decision. She needed an ally, someone who could help her protect the Vexili while she figured out the nature of her growing connection with Zarak. "Dominic, there's something I need to tell you," she began, pulling out Zarak's translator device. "But you have to promise to keep it absolutely confidential." His eyes widened at the sight of the alien technology. "What is that?" "The reason I've been disappearing," she said. "I've made contact with someone incredible, and I think they might be in danger." Dominic set down his specimens and gave her his full attention. "I'm listening." As Nora began to explain, she was acutely aware that her revelation would forever change not only her relationship with Dominic but potentially the course of human history. Meanwhile, the memory of Zarak's touch lingered on her skin, a reminder of the strange bond forming between them, a bond that defied scientific explanation and transcended species boundaries. Somewhere in the forbidden jungle, hidden from human eyes, an ancient mating ritual had begun between two beings from different worlds. Whether it would end in unprecedented harmony or unforeseen disaster remained to be seen. Aliens. Dominic's expression cycled through disbelief, concern, and fascination as Nora finished explaining her encounters with Zarak and Thalora. "Actual, intelligent, technologically advanced aliens living in our research zone, and they've been here for generations." "I know how it sounds," Nora said, the translator device sitting between them like a strange metallic confession. "If I hadn't experienced it myself, I'd think I was suffering from jungle fever or hallucinations from some unknown toxin." Dominic picked up the translator, examining it with the critical eye of a scientist. "This isn't human technology, the metallurgy alone." He turned it over in his hands. "And you say this Zarak believes you're compatible romantically." "It's not romance as we understand it," Nora explained, feeling her cheeks warm. "It's biochemical, a resonance between our cellular structures that creates a kind of bond. They call it vexilia. And you've already undergone the first phase of their mating ritual." There was an edge to Dominic's voice that Nora couldn't quite identify. Concern, jealousy, scientific caution. "It wasn't like that," she protested. I was participating as a scientist, documenting an unprecedented interspecies interaction. Dominic set the device down with deliberate care. With all due respect, Nora, that's bullshit. I saw your face when you described the synchronization. This isn't just scientific curiosity for you. She looked away, unable to deny it. I can't explain it, Dom. When I'm with Zarek, there's a connection that transcends the ordinary. It's like discovering a fundamental constant of the universe that nobody knew existed. That's a pretty romantic way to describe something that's supposedly just biochemical, he observed dryly. Before Nora could respond, the distant sound of helicopter rotors cut through the jungle ambience. They exchanged alarmed glances. No helicopter flights were scheduled in the Forbidden Zone during their research period. This can't be good, Dominic muttered, standing and moving to the edge of their camp clearing. Within minutes, the sound grew deafening as not one but three military-grade helicopters passed overhead, heading toward the heart of the Forbidden Zone, precisely where Nora knew the Vexili settlement must be located. Oh no, she breathed, her stomach dropping. We have to warn them. Dominic grabbed her arm as she started gathering her gear. Wait, think this through. If these are military forces, rushing in could be dangerous, for you and for the Vexili. I can't just do nothing, she insisted, pulling free. Those helicopters are flying right toward their settlement. What if this is because of that quantum resources woman? What if their instruments detected something? Before Dominic could argue further, the crackle of their emergency radio interrupted them. They kept it tuned to the research station frequency at the edge of the Forbidden Zone for weekly check-ins and emergencies. Attention all research teams in Niamb Restricted Zone, a stern male voice announced. This is Captain Thornton of the Special Operations Tactical Unit. A military exclusion perimeter is being established due to a national security concern. All civilian personnel are ordered to evacuate to the base station immediately. Repeat, immediate evacuation is mandatory. Dominic and Nora stared at each other as the message repeated once more before the radio went silent. Special operations, Dominic whispered. What the hell did you get us into, Nora? We don't know this is about the Vexili, she said, but the denial sounded hollow even to her ears. Three military helicopters just happened to fly directly toward your alien friend's settlement on the same day you reveal their existence to me, Dominic deadpanned. That's one hell of a coincidence. Nora grabbed her pack and began stuffing essentials inside. I'm going to warn Zarek. You head back to the base station as ordered. Are you insane? You'll be arrested for violating a military exclusion order. Then I'll be arrested, she said, determination hardening her voice. But I won't abandon them. Zarek trusted me and their whole community could be in danger. Dominic ran his hands through his hair in frustration. And what exactly are you planning to do against a special ops team? Wave your botanist credentials and hope they back off. I don't know yet, she admitted, but I have to try something. After a moment of internal struggle, Dominic sighed heavily. Fine, then I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Partners, remember, he cut her off. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed playing interspecies Romeo and Juliet. Despite the gravity of the situation, Nora felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you. They quickly packed only the essentials, buried their valuable research equipment under fallen leaves, and set off toward the Vexili settlement, using the helicopter's flight path as a guide. The trek was grueling. Without time for careful navigation, they pushed through dense undergrowth, crossed shallow streams, and scrambled over fallen trees. Sweat soaked through their clothes and insects swarmed around them, but urgency drove them forward. After nearly 2 hours of hard hiking, they heard voices ahead, human voices, clipped and professional. Military. Nora signaled for Dominic to stop and crouch down. They crept forward until they could see a small clearing where a group of soldiers in advanced combat gear had established a perimeter. 2 of the helicopters were visible through the canopy gap, while the third was presumably elsewhere. 6 visible personnel, Dominic whispered. Heavy weapons, and some kind of technical equipment I don't recognize. Nora nodded, scanning the area. At the center of the clearing stood a tall, imposing figure in a less tactical and more officer-like uniform. His bearing screamed authority. This had to be Captain Thornton. He was conferring with a familiar face. Veronica Reese from Quantum Resources, who was pointing at a handheld device and speaking animatedly. I knew it, Nora hissed. That company is involved. One of the soldiers approached Thornton. Sir, the anomaly readings are strongest 2 clicks northeast, consistent with the satellite data. Thornton nodded. Establish a forward operating base here. Fuller, take your team and recon the target area, non-lethal protocols until we confirm what we're dealing with. A squad of 4 soldiers checked their gear and moved out in the direction the captain had indicated, directly toward where Nora believed the Vexley settlement was located. We have to get ahead of them somehow, she whispered to Dominic. Circle around and warn Zarek. Those are trained soldiers, Nora. They'll spot us in seconds if we try to overtake them in this terrain. As they debated their next move, a subtle movement caught Nora's eye. A patch of vegetation near them wasn't quite right, the pattern too regular, the stillness too complete. Her breath caught as she realized what she was seeing, a camouflaged Vexley watching the human intruders just as they were. Slowly, deliberately, Nora made the hand gesture Zarek had taught her, palm open, fingers spread, then a circular motion. Friend safe. The camouflage shifted slightly, acknowledging her signal. Then, so subtly she almost missed it, the hidden figure beckoned them to follow before seeming to melt backward into the jungle. Come on, she whispered to Dominic, carefully backing away from their observation point. Where are we going? He asked, mirroring her movements. We're being guided. Once they were far enough from the military encampment, their guide revealed himself, not Zarek, but another Vexley with a more angular face and only 2 eyes, positioned horizontally rather than vertically. Friend of Zarek, the Vexley asked in halting English without a translator device. Yes, Nora confirmed. I'm Nora, this is Dominic. The alien nodded. Sentinel Vyrix. Zarek sent many to watch humans, come not safe here. They followed Vyrix through the jungle via paths invisible to the untrained eye, slight gaps between vegetation, firmer ground that wouldn't leave footprints, roots that avoided breaking branches or disturbing wildlife. The Vexley moved with preternatural grace, sometimes seeming to phase directly through solid undergrowth. After nearly an hour of silent travel, they arrived at what appeared to be a solid rock face covered in vines. Vyrix pressed his bioluminescent fingertips to specific points on the surface, and a seam appeared in the stone, revealing a passage into darkness. Inside, he directed them quickly. The passage led into a vast underground cavern system, illuminated by bioluminescent organisms cultivated along the walls and ceiling. The light revealed a breathtaking sight, a fully developed alien settlement, with structures that seemed grown rather than built, organic architecture that flowed with the natural contours of the cavern. Dozens of Vexley moved about their daily business, their skin patterns shifting in what Nora now recognized as their form of communication. Some stopped to stare at the human visitors, but none seemed alarmed by their presence. Zarek awaits, Vyrix said, leading them deeper into the settlement. They found Zarek in what appeared to be a council chamber, surrounded by Vexley with more elaborate skin patterns that Nora guessed indicated status or authority. Thalura was there as well, along with several other aliens wearing devices similar to the genetic scanner she had used on Nora. Zarek's skin lit up with patterns of blue and gold when he saw Nora. You came, despite danger. The military is coming, she said urgently. They're tracking some kind of anomaly, probably your technology or biological signatures. They have weapons. One of the elder Vexley stepped forward, their skin rippling with complex patterns. A translator device similar to Zarek's vocalized. We are aware of human military presence. Sentinel network monitoring their movements. Not first time your kind has come searching. But this time is different, Dominic interjected. They have advanced detection equipment from a corporation called Quantum Resources, and they're using terms like national security concern. Zarek translated this to the council using skin patterns and vocalizations. An urgent discussion followed, too rapid for the translator to process completely. Finally, the elder spoke again. Council divided on response. Some advocate immediate settlement relocation using distortion fields. Others believe time has come for formal contact with human authorities. Formal contact, Nora repeated. Is that wise? Our species doesn't have the best track record with first contact scenarios even among our own kind. Not first contact, Zarek clarified. Previous limited interactions with selected humans over generations, some aware of our existence, protected knowledge. This revelation stunned Nora. You mean some humans already know about you? Small number, trusted individuals, government officials, scientific minds, spiritual leaders, maintained secrecy for mutual protection. Dominic shook his head in disbelief. And now a military unit is closing in on your settlement. What happens when they find this place? The elder's skin darkened to deep indigo. Depend on their intentions. If peaceful approach, controlled revelation possible. If hostile, defenses will be activated. Defenses, Nora asked, suddenly concerned. What kind of defenses? Before anyone could answer, a young Vexily rushed into the chamber, skin flashing urgent patterns of red and orange. The council erupted in what could only be described as alarm. What's happening? Nora asked Zarek. Military humans breached outer perimeter, he explained, his own skin displaying anxious patterns. Disabled 2 sentinels, approaching inner settlement barriers. The elder issued what appeared to be orders. Multiple Vexily rushed from the chamber, while others began manipulating control surfaces on the organic walls. Please, Nora pleaded, let me try to talk to them. I'm a human scientist with government credentials. Maybe I can prevent a confrontation. Zarek's 3 eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Dangerous, they may see you as traitor. Better that than seeing your people as invaders, she countered. This could be our only chance to prevent violence. After a rapid exchange with the council, Zarek nodded. Council agrees, but not alone, I accompany you. Me too, Dominic added firmly. Virex led them through a different passage, ascending gradually toward the surface. As they neared the exit, Nora could hear voices, human voices giving tactical commands. Remember, Zarek said quietly, his hand briefly touching Nora's in a gesture that sent a pulse of something like courage through her, your Captain Thornton not first human leader to encounter Vexily, but perhaps first with so many weapons. Outcome determined by first words exchanged. They emerged from a concealed entrance different from the one they'd entered, into a small clearing surrounded by dense jungle. Almost immediately, they heard the distinctive sound of weapons being readied. Hands up, don't move. A voice commanded as several soldiers in advanced combat gear emerged from the vegetation, weapons trained on them. Nora and Dominic raised their hands slowly. Zarak, unfamiliar with the gesture, simply stood motionless, his skin shifting to neutral tones. I'm Dr. Nora Valent, botanist with the University of Botanical Sciences, she called out clearly. This is my research partner, Dr. Dominic Mercer. We are authorized personnel in this research zone. And that, one of the soldiers demanded, gesturing at Zarak with his weapon. This is Zarak, a representative of the Vexily people indigenous to this region, she replied, choosing her words carefully. We are here under peaceful circumstances and request to speak with Captain Thornton. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, clearly not having expected this scenario in their tactical briefing. One touched his communication device. Sir, we have a situation, 2 humans and something else. The humans claim to be researchers and want to speak with you. After a moment, he nodded at whatever response he received. Stay where you are, Captain's on his way. Minutes later, Captain Thornton strode into the clearing, Veronica Reese close behind him. The captain was tall and imposing, with a weathered face that had seen multiple combat zones. His expression remained neutral as he assessed the situation, but Veronica's eyes widened at the sight of Zarak. Dr. Valent, Thornton acknowledged. Care to explain why you disobeyed a direct evacuation order and are now in the company of, he gestured at Zarak, whatever this is. Captain, this is a first contact situation with an intelligent species that has been living peacefully on Earth for generations, Nora explained. The Vexily are not a threat. They've maintained secrecy to protect themselves and to prevent disruption to our societies. Fascinating, Veronica interjected, stepping forward with a scanner in hand. The electromagnetic signatures are coming directly from it. This changes everything. Thornton held up a hand to halt her advance. Ms. Reese, please remember you are here as a technical consultant only. He turned back to Nora. Dr. Valent, you're asking me to believe that an alien species has been living undetected in a restricted jungle zone, potentially for years, and poses no threat to national security. Not undetected, Zarak spoke up, his translator device converting his trills into English. Selected humans aware of our presence. Agreement of non-interference maintained for 7 human generations. Thornton's composure slipped momentarily at hearing the alien speak. And who exactly are these selected humans? Ask your superiors, Nora suggested. Specifically, ask about Protocol Vexilia. I'm guessing that's a code word that will get someone's attention. It was a shot in the dark based on what Zarek had told her about previous contacts, but Thornton's subtle reaction suggested she'd hit close to the mark. The captain studied her face for a long moment before touching his communication device. I need a secure line to command, Priority Alpha, Authorization Thornton 7 Delta Niner. He stepped away, speaking too quietly for them to hear. Veronica moved closer to Nora, her eyes never leaving Zarek. You've been in contact with it for how long? She asked, her voice betraying scientific excitement rather than fear. His name is Zarek, Nora corrected, and that's classified information. Veronica smiled thinly. Doctor, everything about this situation is classified now, but Quantum Resources has certain government contracts that may put us in a unique position to facilitate what comes next. What comes next is not up to your corporation, Dominic cut in. This is a diplomatic scenario, not a business opportunity. Before Veronica could respond, Thornton returned, his expression carefully controlled but noticeably altered. I've received new orders, he announced. This area is now under Protocol Vexilia jurisdiction. All military personnel are to establish a perimeter but take no further action without direct authorization from command. He turned to Veronica. Ms. Reese, I apologize, but your services are no longer required. You'll be escorted back to base camp immediately. What? She protested. Captain, our company has exclusive rights to. Those rights have been superseded, he interrupted firmly. This is now a matter of the highest national security. A non-disclosure agreement will be presented to you before your departure. As a soldier led the fuming corporate representative away, Thornton addressed Nora, Dominic, and Zarek. It appears you were correct, Dr. Valent. I've been instructed to inform you that a diplomatic team is en route. Until they arrive, I'm to ensure the safety of all parties and prevent any unauthorized contact. Diplomatic teams, Nora repeated. Apparently this, first contact, isn't as first as I was led to believe, Thornton said with a hint of irritation. Need-to-know protocols kept this information compartmentalized even from the tactical team leader. Zarek's skin rippled with patterns that the translator interpreted as renewal of formal dialogue, expected during this cycle, accelerated by your intervention, Nora Valent. Nora felt a mixture of relief and confusion. So some part of our government has known about the Vexili all along. A specialized department within the State Department, according to my brief update, Thornton confirmed. Beyond that, I know as little as you do. As the tension of the immediate crisis eased, Nora became acutely aware of the personal implications. The arrival of official human representatives would change everything, including her unfolding relationship with Zarek. She glanced at him, only to find his three eyes already focused on her, his skin displaying patterns she'd come to recognize as concern, affection, and uncertainty. Whatever was happening between them had just become exponentially more complicated. The Vexilia bond they'd begun to form now existed not just between two individuals but potentially between two worlds. And as military personnel established their perimeter and communication equipment was set up to await the diplomatic team, Nora wondered if their personal biochemical compatibility might prove to be either the bridge or the barrier between their species. 3 days had passed since the military's arrival in the Forbidden Zone. The diplomatic team Captain Thornton mentioned had established a temporary base at the edge of the Vexili settlement, a strange juxtaposition of high-tech human equipment against the organic architecture of the alien dwelling. Nora sat alone on a natural stone formation overlooking the bustling activity below. Human officials in suits mingled with military personnel and the occasional Vexili representative, their conversations a bizarre mixture of diplomatic protocol and first contact procedures. Thought I might find you here, Dominic said, climbing up to join her. He offered a container of coffee from the military's supplies. You look like you could use this. She accepted it gratefully. Thanks. Any news from the meetings? They're establishing formal communication protocols. Apparently, there's an entire classified division that's maintained sporadic contact with the Vexili for decades. He shook his head in disbelief. The diplomats are acting like this is routine, just with more personnel than usual. And quantum resources. Gone but not forgotten. The government has revoked their research permits, but I overheard some chatter about technological exchange agreements being negotiated. Nora sipped her coffee, the bitter taste matching her mood. So humanity learns about an ancient, peaceful alien civilization living among us and immediately starts thinking about what technology can be extracted from them. That's what we do, Dominic said with a shrug. Though to be fair, not everyone has exploitation on their mind. Some of the scientists they've brought in seem genuinely focused on cultural exchange and knowledge sharing. Have you seen Zarek? She asked, trying to sound casual. Dominic gave her a knowing look. Not since this morning. He was in discussions with someone from the State Department. He asked about you. Nora's heart quickened despite herself. Since the military arrival, her interactions with Zarek had been limited and formal, always in the presence of others. The intimate connection they'd begun to forge seemed distant now, obscured by the bureaucracy of official first contact. Did he say anything else? Just that tonight is significant for his people, something about celestial alignment and cycle completion. He seemed to think you'd understand. Nora straightened, her mind racing. The mating season, Thalara mentioned it was approaching when we first met. Ah, Dominic said awkwardly. That explains the increased activity in the settlement. I noticed many of the Vexili displaying more elaborate skin patterns today. I need to find him, Nora said, standing abruptly. Dominic caught her arm. Nora, wait, before you go rushing off. Have you really thought this through? Whatever connection you feel with Zarek, this Vexilia thing, it's happening in the middle of a historic diplomatic situation. The implications go beyond just the two of you. Don't you think I know that? She replied, frustration edging her voice. But I can't just ignore what's happening between us because it's inconvenient for human-alien relations.